AI will have the tendency of recombining what it knows, and to be able to truly have something novel, something out of the comfort zone, out of the box. That's hard for current AI tools. It's getting better, and that's what I investigate, how to actually make it better. But typically, AI will give you 10 excellent ideas, but it will give everyone the same 10 excellent ideas. And we are losing diversity of outcome as a society. So this is what I observe from my research. AI can make you more creative because it gives you ideas that you would not have otherwise. However, we all get those same extra ideas. And it really takes human creativity to be able to push AI into a different space.
Welcome to What If with Leslie Grandy. We're teaching students two things at the same time now, and it's important to acknowledge it. We're teaching them what AI can do, and we're teaching them how to think alongside a form of intelligence that doesn't reason, experience, or judge in the way that humans do. Those aren't the same thing. It's easy to focus on the tools, what they generate, and how fast they work. But the hard part is understanding the role you need to play when you're solving a problem with AI, and part of the thinking comes from a machine. Most people believe the role they play with AI is fixed. But the truth is sometimes you're driving, framing the problem, making the calls, deciding what matters, and at other times AI is doing more of the exploration, surfacing options, and pushing you to explore directions that you might not have considered. And like with most any relationship, it's not always one way or the other. It's a back and forth that shifts depending on the task, the stakes, and how clear you are on what good looks like. That's what makes this moment tricky to teach. You're not just helping students learn capabilities. You're helping them build judgment, when to trust, when to question outputs, when to push further because what they got may be technically right, but not actually useful. You're asking them to stay engaged in the thinking, even when the system can do a lot of the work for them. And this is what a lot of people get wrong. They treat AI like it's either a tool you control or a system you supervise. But in practice, it's more fluid than that. The line between human in the loop and AI in the loop keeps moving. The real skill is how to teach someone to move with it, especially when part of the thinking is externalized. How do you help them build confidence and agency when the capabilities are constantly evolving and change is perpetual? And how do you prepare them to engage with AI in a way that improves the outcome instead of just speeding it up? This becomes the thread of my conversation with Leonard Boussioux, a University of Washington professor who has developed curriculum that teaches students how to partner with generative AI to solve complex problems. Through an understanding of the power of large language models, vibe coding, and agentic AI, the next generation of college graduates may be more AI literate than the leaders who will hire them. And these junior employees may see possibilities that leaders can't yet recognize, resulting in friction that stalls how decisions get made. Not because leaders lack intelligence or experience, but because the lens they're using to evaluate what's possible needs to be updated. I hope you enjoy this episode. In today's episode of What If with Leslie Grandy, my guest is Leonard Boussioux. Leo is an assistant professor in the Department of Information Systems and Operations Management at the University of Washington's Foster School of Business and an adjunct assistant professor at the UW Allen School of Computer Science and Engineering. His research combines operations, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. He has developed and deployed machine learning and deep learning models to address high-stake challenges, including healthcare operations, pollution management, hurricane forecasting, and ecosystem preservation. At Foster, Leo developed a comprehensive curriculum from scratch, which covers technical content such as deep learning, large language models, and diffusion models. His courses emphasize critical thinking, ethical reasoning, business acumen, and creative problem-solving abilities. I came to know Leo from research he conducted and then published in August 2024, titled The Crowdless Future, Generative AI and Creative Problem Solving. Welcome to the podcast, Leo. I'm delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm very much looking forward to our conversation today.
Excellent. Well, why don't we start out by having you share with our audience more about your areas of research focus and how that informs the way you think about humans working with AI on complex problems. I think you have a lot to say on this topic, and I really want to start pulling the covers back on it.
Absolutely. In general, I'm very passionate about solving the most pressing problems we are facing in the world. And if I want to do it all, it means I need to find methods that allow me to tackle seemingly very different problems. And so this is what I spent my whole PhD in, developing ways to leverage all sorts of data sources. This is called multimodality. How do you combine images with texts, with sounds, with time series? It's complicated because all these data sources, they look different to us humans, but also to computers. And if we want to help people making better decisions, it means we need to find methodologies to bring it all together. Think of a doctor. A doctor, to make an assessment of a patient, needs to look at the notes from the nurses and other doctors, needs to look, for instance, at blood samples, needs to look at an MRI or a CAT scan, an X-ray, needs to think of what the patient is sharing about their symptoms. So this is a lot of data that humans use constantly for making all sorts of decisions. And I want to build algorithms and methods that help us make even better decisions. So it means I need to equip computers with that ability. That's why I did work on hurricane forecasting. I'm working right now on wildfire management, on how we can allocate firefighters better, which means I need to figure out, given a specific situation, how the fire may evolve if you send 100 people or 1,000 people. So it's a combination of predicting the future, but also prescribing the right treatment, the right decision we should make. So that's one of the big parts of my research, better decision making. And the other part that I love is how can we accelerate in general problem solving? And for this, I leverage human AI collaboration. I study how we can leverage, for instance, the best large language models to allow you to, for instance, decide if a startup should be invested in, or if, for instance, this decision is the right one for you. It can be a personal decision, for instance. And it's challenging to figure out how to best use generative AI because it has the tendency of being sycophantic, meaning it wants to agree with you, while sometimes it needs to push back. Sometimes it's biased. Sometimes it will favor a given situation that is not what is in your favor. But because it was trained on a huge amount of data, it can have this tendency of just bringing you to the wrong place. So I'm studying how we can best collaborate with it and leverage the latest technological advancements, for instance, agentic AI, which we may talk about later today.
Excellent. That's terrific. So on the one end, you have this really complex set of variables that you're trying to manage through these models and solve really big, hairy problems. On the other hand, though, you're also talking about the personal capacity to solve problems for individuals, right? And so that spectrum is what you're covering. That's why I wanted to make sure, because I've been aware of all these other more complex problems that you were solving. So I wanted to see if you really find yourself kind of moving across the spectrum of problem solving.
Absolutely. That's what I love because I think to solve problems, there's a lot going on. Sometimes it's something that it's about you specifically as a scientist. How can you be more efficient? How can you have better ideas? How can you prototype them at large scale? Then you have at the team level, how do you enable a whole team to be more efficient with the help of AI? How can the team develop a better prototype? How can the team test a given hypothesis? Meaning we can help the whole process of science. And then at the institution or organization level, we also need to provide tools that anybody can use whenever relevant. So that's this entire landscape that I'm really passionate about. And that's why, in a way, I do it all because it's still very integrated. There is a whole process. And if you think of AI as a tool that can augment different actions we should make, different processes, then you will start uncovering so many new use cases for the technology. So that's what I'm really passionate about.
So, what led you towards creative problem solving as opposed to productivity or performance type metrics that people are focused on with AI and efficiency? How did you kind of decide that there was a lot of richness in studying creative problem solving and the creative spirit of the humans versus the humans plus machines?
I've always been fascinated by nature. I love birds so much, and I love dragonflies, butterflies, wild orchids. So I spent my whole childhood being inspired about how nature can solve problems that we don't even know how to solve very well yet. Think of plants being able to store energy with the photosynthesis, like creating that energy. Plants being able to communicate. For me, that's inspiration for solving hard problems in the industry. Better materials, more sustainability, being resilient against natural disasters, fighting pollution. All of these are hard problems. And if we stay within the space of what we already know, we may pass along really good ideas. And that's the challenge with AI. AI has learned tremendous amount of concepts and ideas through its immense training data. But this immense training data is also a curse because AI will have the tendency of recombining what it knows, and to be able to truly have something novel, something out of the comfort zone, out of the box. That's hard for current AI tools. It's getting better, and that's what I investigate, how to actually make it better. But typically, AI will give you 10 excellent ideas, but it will give everyone the same 10 excellent ideas. And we are losing diversity of outcome as a society. So this is what I observe from my research. AI can make you more creative because it gives you ideas that you would not have otherwise. However, we all get those same extra ideas. And it really takes human creativity to be able to push AI into a different space, into a different set of ideas. This can happen through prompting. So that's the easiest one can do, is like changing the way we'll ask the question to the model. But we also can leverage other types of systems, such as agentic systems, where you don't talk to one AI, but you leverage multiple large language models at once so that they can potentially push each other towards more novel and valuable content. So this is what I wanted to investigate. How can I help AI going out of what it knows, such that in turn it can also help humans to go out of what they know. And that's really the synergy that I'm looking into. And that's why I was really interested in how can we get those AI tools to be more creative for us, so that they bring us new ideas and more valuable ideas, which is not a default.
It's really interesting because you make a distinction between AI in the loop and human in the loop. In what you just said, I think there's some evidence of what you're suggesting, which is that we've been thinking about making sure there's a human in the loop to keep AI honest. But I think what you're saying is the AI in the loop mindset pushes the human to be more forward thinking and gives them more insights to be more creative. Do I have that right, or do I have it backwards?
No, it's even richer than that. There is no recipe that will be the right one in every scenario. And I'm actually indeed studying this AI in the loop or human in the loop types of pipelines. And what we discover is that it's really depending on what you actually want to do, what task is at play. And interestingly, there is no rule that sticks with all situations. And that's where we go back to the human again, which is in this situation, what would be the best? Should you rely on AI and then I will bring the human in the loop? Or instead, should I drive this entire process and then I will call AI when needed? It turns out that this is really through experience that we start developing that intuition on when you should ask AI for help or not. And AI models keep getting better. Every month, they make huge progress. which means something that was better potentially as an AI in the loop a month ago might be a better human in the loop the month later. And how do we even know what's the best? It's by trying, it's by experimenting, and it's by testing one method, another, but also being very critical around what do I get from that collaboration with AI? Am I getting average good results, or am I getting these exceptionally good things? How do I get something that is rare, like a good idea that I can then develop and test and prototype? This is where the human ability to recognize what's valuable will be incredibly precious. The taste of the humans is what we need in particular. AI doesn't always have a good taste or has a taste that we don't appreciate. So this is what we can bring in the perspective. And whether you use a human in the loop or an AI in the loop will change the outcome. Who is going to start and who is going to finish, for instance.
And you're talking about this rapid change, and the thing that you had said was the way it operates this month may not be how it responds next month, or the value it creates in 6 months from now. You're teaching AI in the classroom, and when we talked recently, you raised the problem that you face where the tools are changing as you're teaching, right? And the capabilities evolve. And so how, as a teacher, do you adapt your curriculum with that insight that it's likely not to last for the duration of the term, and that the insights that you gain while people maybe are working on projects during the course of the semester, they see things different than what you had experienced at the beginning of the semester? How do you cope with that? How do you manage a syllabus that traditionally stays rock solid, not only for the whole semester, but often year after year?
Absolutely. That's a question that is also a passion for me because I just love teaching so much. And I love thinking of teaching as a chess game or as an adventure, a journey. I'm really taking a lot of analogies from literature, for instance. When you read books from the 17th, 18th, 19th century, oftentimes we have the beginning, the exposition of what are we going to do. We have the characters. And these characters, they typically need to grow. And then you have multiple adventures. And during each adventure, they learn something new about themselves and also about the world. And at the end, sometimes in theater too, like you have this huge action and finally you have a good resolution. So this is something I spend months in advance planning. That adventure, that journey for the students that I know that I want all of these elements to get into the teaching. What I do not know yet is which adventure we're going to take together. And this is what I know maybe a week before, sometimes even a day before, when a new technology comes out. So I have this idea that students will arrive with a heterogeneous type of level around their use of AI. So I need to understand that on day one. But I also need to acquire trust with the students and give them this creative energy, this feel of the magic of AI, but also it's magic we can learn how to control so that it becomes a science. And that's how I start the course. I'm starting with showing students dozens of possibilities with the latest tools. And I do not know yet in advance what are those dozens of demonstrations, but I know that I will figure it out in time. So that's how I start. I know that session one is all about discovering an entire landscape of possibilities where students hopefully will suddenly see, wow, there's more we can do that I did not imagine before. So suddenly I woke up their creative brain. I woke up their energy. Wow, I can do lots of things and I crave for trying them. So that's the goal of the beginning. And then I need to give them powers. So every session is aimed at giving new powers to the students. And this I already know in advance that I will give new powers. What I don't know yet is what powers I will teach students next year. Typically, I teach about powers about coding because traditionally business school students don't code or barely. I believe that with the advent of the modern tools, anyone can code or vibe code, which is this concept of leveraging natural language to tell the AI what you want to see happen. So you can create a website, you can create a prototype, a dashboard, even if you don't know how to code. So I already know I will teach that. What I don't know is what will be the tool. And every year it's changed. It's the third year in a row that I teach vibe coding, and every year the tools have just made incredible progress. And what the students are able to achieve is always getting better. So this is the structure. I know that there are some hot topics right now in the industry. I know that there's a lot of things people can do to be more productive or creative with technology. So I design each session so that it builds on the previous one and will get the students something that will serve them. And so this year, vibe coding was the first power we learned. The second power was agentic models. So how do we leverage those brand new agents, these new tools that help you delegate tasks? And the tools literally came out the week before. And one of them, it literally came out the morning I taught it. And it's really, for me, I need to quickly try them all to see what I think will stick. And then when I teach that to the students, not only do I teach how to use the power, but what are the metacognitive lessons from the process that they can take away with them whenever there will be a new tool. And this is this maturity that I aim for, helping the students understanding beyond that simple task, but rather about what is fundamental about the way I'm currently delegating or leveraging AI.
You're listening to What If with Leslie Grandy. If you want to activate your imagination and build your creative muscles, I put together some free resources, including webinars, downloadable content, bonus book content, and even a GPT to help you achieve your goals. Access these free tools to start asking what if today at lesliegrandy.com/resources. So this is fascinating because you tell me also that one of the things you're teaching in this process is confidence and agency. So I can't think of a college course I ever took where a professor thought that was an outcome they were aiming for in the effort. How do you teach it and how do you measure their success at mastering those two things?
Absolutely. And I do all of these from many different angles. First of all, I use stories from my personal life. And here I'm being vulnerable with the students. I tell them the things that worked and things that did not work. I teach them about luck, how you can engineer your luck, your serendipity. I teach them about how to build a tipping point for yourself, how you can create a change of momentum. And I share concepts from a lot of cool books that I've read. Like there's the book The Tipping Point, a book called From Zero to One, where good ideas come from. Those are New York Times bestsellers book. They're very appreciated in the Silicon Valley. They're interesting, fun books to read. So I share with the students these concepts as way number one. Let's see what happened for others. And now I engage them into thinking for themselves about what is a tipping point you'd like in your life? What is a situation where it did not work? And sometimes I even mention psychology. And I tell students like it's possible you've heard people telling you that this is not for you. Math or coding is not for you, or you maybe internalize that indeed it's not your forte. And I'm going to deconstruct those beliefs. That's part of the course. I want to deconstruct any limiting beliefs that those students have in them. And sometimes those beliefs come from childhood, from teachers, from family, from siblings, from friends. So I want to deconstruct that. And how do I do it? I found a pretty good recipe this year. I get in my first course every student to build something that they want and they build it alone, no team. Like this, there is no friction. Students are the only masters of their work. And I tell the students, you have to create an actual product that anybody can use by the end of the month. And you can do whatever you want, but you got to use generative AI to make it happen. And this was transformational for the students because I know that every student has ideas, every student has dreams, things that they always wanted to do, but they never have the time or they never get themselves the pressure to do it. So I create that pressure because they are graded And then there will be an exhibition day. I would call this the agentic fair, where every student will be able to share in a booth their work in front of alumni that we bring. This was so amazing to the students because they built what they've been dreaming about. And for instance, I've had examples where students have built a video game they always wanted to build. And this student, like I have this student in mind, he created a 3D environment of his childhood school. So he used real pictures, created that environment, and then created an entire game. He told me it's been 3 years that I had this in mind, and he did it in 2 weeks. Another student has dogs and is very worried when people are losing their pet. She built an app to allow people to find their pet. Another of my students is very motivated about civic engagement, but he's thinking that the system is broken. It's hard to get in touch with the officials to tell them that there is a problem to fix. So she built that platform. Another student loves art and museums. He built an app that allows you to see all the artworks around you in a very immersive manner. So students have really leveraged what they care about and what they love, which gave them this confidence that they can do it because literally in 2 weeks, they built it. And suddenly they realize I can actually do this for anything I want. And I saw the students actually repurposing those skills into other courses and taking it away for things that are very personal. And one of my students, he built an app that allows him to create movies where dad is the hero for his kids. So now the kids, instead of watching random cartoons, are watching cartoons created by the dad, where dad is the hero in the cartoons. I found this to be very cute and funny. And he had this idea through the course because he thought, actually, I know how to build this now.
This is really interesting too, because I think realizing your own idea is game changing. It sounds like for them. But what's also interesting is how did they experience the problem before and after AI, right?
Absolutely.
So they were living with this pain point and then they solved it. What do you see in that transition around them understanding when they need to push AI further in their thinking? So AI can come up with a solution, and you've often said this, I've seen in your work, it'll get you to part of the way there, but it's up to humans to get it to the right place. What do you see in your classroom that really kind of validates that?
I love this question because it's one of the things I need to unlock in the students. And I really actively think of that question. What I witness from teaching AI to thousands of people over the past 3 years is that most people still consider AI as a chatbot. Like people think of AI as ChatGPT or Claude now is another very popular one. So people think as AI can answer me questions and can talk with me. But people don't necessarily think of AI can start doing specific tasks for me. Or people may think, hey, I get AI to write my email. I can get AI to summarize this. Those are things that AI can definitely do well. But now it's time to go to the next level, which is, can AI do a set of tasks that typically are reserved only for human intelligence or that are locked through multiple pieces of software? For instance, if you have to do a PowerPoint, if you have to do a spreadsheet where you have to combine 10 insights together. So this is what I need to do. I need to make students realize that AI can do much more than they believe. But to get there, it needs orchestration because AI models that people use is still mostly into a chatbot. And the tools that unlock the ability to do more are typically reserved for software engineers and coders because these are the primary audience of the companies. And so they, before being tools for humanity, labs try them with software engineers because this is where there is the easiest value to unlock, essentially automating code generation. But if you think of the work as just a way to communicate a task to an AI, suddenly you realize you have access to a whole new language of tasks, and building something becomes describing exactly what you want and then guiding the tool, the AI, to do it. So this is what I'm going to show students, making them realize that once they master a few more tools, a few more concepts of orchestration and directing, they can actually do it by themselves because they have what is precious, which is the idea. They know what they want. They have the taste, and they also have the ability to assess, to judge whether this is good or not good. So now remains the final thing, which is get AI to build it with you. And then you will drive that whole process. So this is what I do. I teach students how they can do that. And then they realize, indeed, AI can do it all. But I will really need to be involved in that whole process. And I also prepare the students for what's next, because the better AI gets, the less guiding from the human you may need, but also the more ability to judge and evaluate you may need, because AI will do maybe 10 times more, which means it's 10 times more things you need to evaluate, check, assess. So I prepare the students also for that era where you just give one simple sentence and you just get the final thing done. This is really where we're going. But is it really done? No, there's so much more. You need to test it with real users. You need to see if it's good with your edge cases. You need to see there is not any hallucination of logic, like a logic error in the whole process that you can't see because it's not in the surface. It's really hidden in the code. So I need to teach all of these important metacognitive skills to the students. And so that this whole process.
I love to just spend a second on that metacognition. And I think there's a couple of pieces to it that really fascinated me on my own journey, which is getting comfort with pushing back, right? Being aware that it isn't smarter than me and I might know something, or it might teach me something about how I interact with it. If I'd have just prompted it differently, I might have gotten closer to what I wanted. How do you teach students, right, to constructively and productively interact with AI so that they're not only trusting the outcomes as being authoritatively correct, right, that they're willing to challenge it, but they're also learning in the process and figuring out how AI got to that place? I think for me, that has been one of the most enjoyable parts, is to recognize how it operates so I do better at prompting. Right. So I
Absolutely.
get smarter. So how do you teach people that skill? Is it a language type skill that you teach, or is it a mental model that you teach?
I find this to be one of the hardest things to teach because it's really at the heart of human intelligence. And it's also one of the magnificent things about our brain, this ability to step away, to think large and broad. So I also take a second with the students to recognize this, to admire it, and to feel it. So I need students to feel this metacognition so that they realize it and so that they also wake it up, so that it's very poignant and there. And then I realized that it's not by using words that I will convince students that it's important or that they will learn it from my teaching. They will actually have to experience that metacognition. So me as an instructor, this is where my job comes in. I need to create the experiences that will help students feel those skills and work with them. And so I have created a set of such experiences. I have one session I really love. It's the one on vibe coding, where I really believe to be a good vibe coder, which is how to properly guide the AI to create like pieces of code, you need a lot of metacognition skills. So I created the following: a set of 3 levels, kind of like a game, for students to go even deeper and deeper into the concept. So level 1, I ask every student to create a game, a little video game, because everybody has played a game at some point in their life. So I'm asking students, you're going to use a simple model like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude from their interface to literally create a game that you can play. Why do I choose this? Because low stake, like there is no stress, like creating a game. It's fun, and then you decide what you want. And then I tell the students, I want you to share your game with your neighbor so that the neighbor can play the game, and so that you realize that there's lots of things that are unclear because it's different to build something for you and for someone else. And you realize that you need a good onboarding. You realize that the rules are maybe not clear, or that there's bugs that you did not even expect because you are or in your flow, but sometimes things arise because someone is in another flow. And so from that experience, students realize, wow, AI clearly built an amazing game. Like, I'm so surprised I could actually build that game. But also the counterpart to it is there's so many things AI forgot. And I have to think of these details that AI may forget, which means I need to take a step back and really design precisely what I want, what is success. So that's the first thing that they experience from level 1. Then we move to level 2. I ask every student to create a personal page, like a promotional page for themselves. Basically, their LinkedIn profile, but on a new page. And most students don't have a personal web page. So it's an exciting exercise because it feels that's great. I'm now getting a portfolio online. So it's my work. I know the most about me. How do I get a website that will represent me online? So it forces the student to think of presentation, think of what matters, think of how they should introduce themselves to the world through a page. This exercise teaches them a lot too. And then what is particularly interesting is I ask every student, please put your page on your computer and now walk around the classroom and see each other's creations. Something very interesting happens. It turns out that most students, although they're all prompting differently the AI and all putting different things, they end up with pretty similar websites. And why? It's because if we all use the same tool, like I recommend Lovable, which is a fantastic vibe coding tool that supported my students. The tool is amazing. It gives amazing pages to everyone. However, it tends to give the same page to everyone too, because that's the comfort zone of the tool. And students suddenly say, whoa, I thought I had the coolest thing, and it is very cool, but we all have the same coolest thing. And then they have to realize that it takes a lot to bring AI into other places, different designs, different colors, different ways of creating that whole website. And then they realize, wow, I need to think. It's not obvious. I really need to take a step back and I need inspiration. So that's another thing that they learn from step 2. And then I move them to level 3, which is now we are going to use the most advanced tools. For instance, Codex from OpenAI, Cloud Code from Anthropic, or Anti-Gravity from Google. And there's a variety of others, VS Code, Cursor. I show the students this is how software engineers and people who code actively leverage AI. This is where you feel the closest to the AI. You feel the raw power of it. But to get there, you have to bypass the block of how they look like, because these tools, they're not as aesthetic or user friendly. They're really raw. And this is why it's also powerful. You don't need this little UI detail that may diminish the value of AI. You're really talking to the AI and you're really feeling it. And that is a brand new thing for these students, because typically they would not even think that this is for them or not even be aware that it's possible. But now they're building with the engine, like they are hearing the engine. Suddenly, this is where they realize so much more. And when they see, wow, that gap, I can fix it here. That thing that I thought was out of the comfort zone of AI, actually it can do it because now I'm really talking to the most powerful model. And to be able to tell that to AI, I need to properly describe the task. I need to imagine maybe 5 or 10 steps ahead what I want. Otherwise, I won't get the right outcome. AI will decide for me. And students realize all these lessons through building it, through realizing all the mistakes AI is making that are subtle and hard to detect. And because they have something in mind, their dream project, they got to really know and check what mattered. And that whole experience equipped the students with those metacognitive skills. And it's a whole journey. This was for one session, but in every session I have other exercises around this too.
If you had to boil down the mind shift that is happening over the course of the semester to one statement, what do you think is the most common mindset shift that occurs after your class? Where do you feel like they started and where do they end?
Students started the course believing that AI is something that they have to cope with or deal with and figure out one way or another, a threat, potentially something good. But enthusiasm was not the general emotion in the classroom, mostly worries. At the end, students open new doors for themselves, but for others, their family, their friends, because they have realized the potential, they have realized the limitations, and they have realized how much the human is needed in the process, but also how much they can now achieve that they did not know they could. So their imagination becomes the new limitation. And they realize that I'm able to drive AI in where I want to go.
It sounds like it's about the agency and empowerment, right? That they're not learning a tool as much as understanding this application's capacity to empower them to do things they hadn't imagined they could do.
That's correct. Absolutely. They feel empowered, truly. And this is what is a game changer for them. I've heard many students telling me that they never imagined that AI was for them. Like they felt, oh, that's just something I'll have to use one way or another, but I'm not excited. Now the students are, I want to do more. I want to push the boundaries. I want to do research. I want to build that tool. How can I do research with you? Because students realize, wow, this is such a beautiful, wonderful world full of problems and limitations, but I want to address that. That's exciting. So it's bringing back that feeling of excitement that goes hand in hand with the thing that the agency is now theirs. And that is that beauty that I really appreciate through the teaching too.
Yeah, so now you're launching this whole AI native workforce, right, through your classes and through your programs. And they're going to come into organizations where there's expertise and authority figures who may not be as native as they are. So, what advice do you have for leaders to leverage this kind of new class of skills, but also to empower this type of employee with less experience than them to actually potentially achieve more than they could have imagined being how junior they are?
Love the question. I also thought a lot about it. And I'll start by sharing this that happened in my classroom. I have two courses back to back. Each course is 1 month long. In the first course, every student became a power user of AI, knowing how to have agency, how to make things come true. And in the second course, I ask students to come back to their programs team. So every student has a team that they've been assigned to at the beginning of the program. And I ask them, now you have 1 more month to build another project, but you have to build it as a team. And I know that now every student is good at using AI, and there is no one that should pretend that you should be the software engineer, I will be the product manager, etc. However, students realize that even though now everyone in the team in a way is AI native, it doesn't make the team necessarily more productive. On the contrary, new challenges will emerge that people have different opinions. They do not know yet how to collaborate together. It's a thing to be very good at talking to AI on your computer. It's a different thing than having multiple people collaborating with those same AI tools. So it's also part of the journey. How do you collaborate with AI, but with other humans? And it's realizing that to get an AI native population, it's not only about teaching everyone how to use AI, but also how to get everybody to collaborate properly with the tools in a way that will align people's incentives. And we come back to people's problem and managing problems. Interestingly, managing AI tools is kind of similar to managing a team of humans. So I would say that there's multiple steps to, in a way, upskill an entire workforce. First of all, you need to identify, I would say, AI champions, people who will be able to diffuse their knowledge to others. These people who will be forward looking, they are realizing new use cases. They're very important because they bring energy, they bring creativity, but they need to be supported. The danger is they're siloed and what they do is only for themselves. So you want this to be diffused to others. So that's step number one. How do you create the culture where people are going to help each other? They're going to learn from each other and diffuse that knowledge across teams. Now that we have this diffusion happening, we also want in general people to feel what's possible with the current AI tools. And there is a difference doing personal work on your computer, where maybe you use the latest models, and then doing it from the enterprise, because many models are actually not as safe as enterprise would want in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of protection of the data. And that is one of the big limiting factors as well. For instance, right now, Cloud Code is just an incredible tool. You can basically code what you want from natural language, but it can also interact with documents, PDFs, PowerPoint, spreadsheets. But the danger is if you use that in the workforce, are you feeling safe with your data? So I would say it's important to get people to figure out how to get access to those latest tools. Anthropic is working very hard to make them safe because they know they have a massive market, and they can even eat on the turf of Microsoft, for instance, because they're literally having skills and plugins to do PowerPoints and spreadsheets, etc. And that's another thing that companies can do. How can we give access to our employees to the best tools so that they can actually see what's possible and they're not in a way a few months behind in terms of what we can do? And that is a hard one because it has to do with legal, it has to do with IT. And so if we are able to align incentives towards helping everyone getting access to good tools, that can help a lot because it's going incredibly fast. Anthropic released something called Cloud Cowork that I just use every day. It's really the ability of coding and at the same time talking, creating documents in one software, and just giving access to employees so that they explore what's possible. Suddenly you unlock a lot of capabilities. So that's aspect number two. And aspect number three, how do you create in general that positive culture around AI? Because there's a lot of fears that if you have more AI, then you don't need as many employees. And you have multiple strategies. For instance, Block recently laid off 40% of their employees because they said that it's because of AI. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But that kind of narrative is giving a negative opinion about AI. Like, why would you want to replace yourself? It's scary because will you find even another job somewhere? But you also have another perspective. For instance, Walmart. Walmart is thinking that AI is an opportunity to expand their market. So the goal won't be to decrease the workforce, but rather, can we find things that we never had the opportunity of doing just because we did not have resources, the time, or the capabilities? And now you can just do more. So this is what can be asked is like, if we build a great vision around how those tools can strengthen our mission, then you can keep the same workforce, but it means you will need to change maybe some tasks. And then there's a lot of good research from Stanford in particular that has shown that it's not that jobs will be replaced, it's more that tasks can be automated or augmented. But we humans, typically, we don't do just one type of task. We're doing so many tasks. So we're observing a displacement of tasks. A task can be market research. This one can be automated with AI. Another task can be finding the right leads on social media so that you can sell your product. Those are tasks. And AI can definitely automate or augment some of these tasks, which means we need to redefine jobs. We need to redefine how people should work together. Maybe we need more flexible and mobile teams that collaborate very quickly on a few specific things. And this is really about reimagining how we get people to work together, knowing that AI can do things extremely well, but it still needs a lot of humans to drive it. So I would say that's the final point. How do you reorchestrate your workforce? How do you redesign the tasks or the jobs that people have to perform such that it feels comfortable and safe for people to be power users, and so that it increases the overall creativity, innovation, and ability to serve the customers well?
That's great. I think those are all really great concrete examples that you cited as well, which I think makes it a little bit more actionable. And I think a lot of people know they need to do it, but they don't know what to do. And so I think you've given them some good pillars to get started on. I want to kind of wrap up with one question. I know you can't know what is going to happen in the world of AI 5 years from now, but you might have a point of view about what's going to happen in education 5 years from now around how AI is either taught separately or integrated across domains and majors. What are your thoughts about what will happen 5 years from now in the academic world as AI becomes more integrated, right, into the educational process?
So I was very happy to be part of the AI task force at our Foster School of Business. We've been working for several years on how to adapt education around the fact that AI is nowhere to go away and we need to equip our students with it. And so we defined 6 learning outcomes for students. We designed these outcomes that matter so much, and I think education has a big role into playing. So we want students to be able to explain core AI concepts. If you're able to understand better what is a large language model, how do we train them, how do we fine tune them, suddenly you are becoming a better user of the technology, a better engineer, a better manager. So that's very important. It's like the fundamental understanding of how they work. I think that's one of the roles of education, is giving that core understanding of how they work and why would they hallucinate, why would they be potentially racist or sexist in what they generate, how do we get systems that won't create danger. This is coming back from learning the fundamentals. So that's one thing we can do. Then we want students to be able to design and build solutions for problems. And you can learn this on your own through tutorials online, watching videos, but there is a whole different aspect if you are part of a classroom in person, where you are with classmates, where you feel this, where you're able to show and grow together. So I think this is what we can do also in the education system, creating this experience to students so that they feel that growth, that confidence, this ability to give feedback to each other. So that space is incredibly precious. We also want students to be able to discuss ethics around AI. AI is asking us a lot of questions. For instance, if you can put AI into warfare, like if you can put AI in drones and they can take lives away. This is also a big question. If you can take AI to decide who's going to be hired, which students are we going to admit, which startup are we going to fund, those are ethical questions. The question of electricity, of how much they use, the question of water usage, those are important questions that yield political debates, economic debates. So we want students to be able to have them. And that's also what education can provide, the ground for people to be able to hold debates. We also want the students to figure out how they can build that lifelong learning mindset. This is beyond AI. In general, how do you learn how to learn? And this is one of the hardest things to learn, actually. And I believe that the education system has this responsibility of training people who know how to create those metacognitive skills, who know how to best figure out what is right or wrong, to disentangle the noise from the actual signal. And that's also what education can do. And that's what I also want to do in my classroom and what we push for at Foster. That aspect of lifelong AI learning mindset is a powerful one. This is how also you get potentially an entire country to know how to adapt to changes, how to react to the fact that some jobs are going to be replaced for sure, but new jobs are going to be created. How do we get people to find these new jobs or invent new jobs or be entrepreneurs, solopreneurs? Like nowadays, it's getting easier and easier for people to build their own business from scratch alone because AI can do the marketing, can do the coding, can handle the customer interface. So you become here the manager of a variety of AI tools. Can we prepare students to be part of that modern workforce. And finally, we also have the mission of educating leaders, people who can inspire others, people who can help everyone grow around them. This is not a given. This is something that you learn through practicing. This is something that you can do with your teammates as a starting point. So by bringing people together in the classroom, you provide that field for them to try and test. And then they're ready to go to the workforce and feel also the reality of the industry. So I think this entire landscape is what we are trying to do, but we also adapt. Like we realize that sometimes you just need to come for just a certificate. So we're creating now certificates where you can just come for a few courses around AI specifically. You don't have the time for an entire master's, but you have the time for a few courses just to get refreshed, get the happiness of the education, feeling with other learners, because learning together is always something that brings so much youth, so much happiness and joy. And that's what I think education can provide as well.
This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate what your contribution is to learning at Foster. And I really am grateful that you're opening up the conversation around critical thinking and creative thinking being taught as part of the learning journey. It's clearly something people don't learn in high school. So it's awesome that there's an opportunity in higher education to develop those skills or develop confidence in those skills. So thank you for that work that you're doing. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. I appreciate the depth of your questions as they represent such amount of time for me to grapple with, because those are the core questions an instructor is thinking about and as a whole system is thinking about. And it's why I believe that teaching is an art. How can I combine it all into an adventure for all of us where at the end you feel joyful, excited, and ready for the next one? I really appreciate our time together and thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Leo. The students are lucky to learn from you. Thanks so much for joining me. You've been listening to What If with Leslie Grandy. If you want to learn more about creative leadership in the age of generative AI, subscribe to my Substack at lesliegrandy.substack.com.